Okay, the study of time series analysis is a very important subject in finance. Most primarily because many of the data that's used in finance is time bound. Okay, so this study is very important, and there are many methods that can be used in modeling time series. So one of the most popular method in modeling time series is what we call the ARIMA here, ARIMA model. ARIMA stands for autoregressive integrated moving average, which we're going to discuss today. And there are many references that you can use. For example, the reference here from the Penn State University. I think I checked the site and what I gave you did not work, so I'm going to give you the newer site. Okay, so kindly please replace the reference there with this one. I checked this morning if the site was still on. It was not, but it provided another link. Okay, so this is from Penn State Eberly College of Science. Okay, and the site that I provided you with is this one, Applied Time Series Analysis. Okay, I encourage you to look at this, and we're going to discuss, of course, some of the portions here, but this is more comprehensive discussion, and there are many chapters here. So studying this will really help you understand more time series analysis. And most of the research is done now. Most of the thesis done now in our course is time series based. Okay, so this will really help you in your thesis in the future. So please take a look at this site. Okay, I'll leave you to to peruse over this. Okay, there are many chapters here, and we're going to discuss also this up to this method. Okay, up to this is multivariate time series vector autoregressive models. So going back to our R file. Okay, this is also another reference. Okay, I leave you class to look at these references for your perusal. Now, I hope you have loaded the packages. Okay, let me load mine first. And these are the packages that we're going to use in this subject. See, I'm having problem with my TSM because I think this is a new version of R. So I'll have to run this one. Okay, so I think it's running. Okay, that's good. So also fin time series. Okay, so here it asks for which would you like to update? I'll just update all one. In case you didn't get this, it means that you just installed the latest one. Okay, mine has been installed long ago. So it's telling me that there are new packages now. There are new updates to FinTS. Okay, my FinTS is not loaded. Let me see. FinTS install. Okay. So it's now installed, and then I just load it. Okay, there you go. So we're okay now with the packages. All right. So when we talk about time series analysis, it's the study of not only creating a model for your time series data so that you can predict the next few observations, either the next weeks, the next months, etc., depending on your objective. But it's also finding out meaningful insights from your data. Analysts make use of this. Policymakers make use of time series analysis. Make use of time series analysis in order to understand what's happening to the data that they are studying. And there, as I said, there are different methods for modeling time series. One of the most popular one is the Box-Jenkins approach. And the Box-Jenkins approach, aka otherwise known as ARIMA, and as I said, ARIMA stands for Autoregressive Integrated Moving Average. By the end of this course, you should be able to understand fully what ARIMA models are and how to create an ARIMA model for any time series. Okay, so AR simply stands for autoregressive. As the name suggests, class, auto stands for self. Okay, regressive, as you know, class, this is a subject on regression where you use a particular variable in order to explain another variable. So autoregressive means that you're using the same data, the same variable, in this case your time series, in order to explain the time series itself. Okay, is there any question here? Okay, so AR stands for autoregressive. MA, on the other hand, stands for error terms, the past error terms. And I stands for integration. Now, we'll be discussing this in greater detail. I just wanted to define what AR, MA, and I stands for. Autoregressive Integrated Moving Average. Okay. Now let's define first what an AR1 is. Okay. First order autoregression model. It's denoted by AR1. Okay, so we're using this model, AR, autoregressive. And using LaTeX class, we're able to define this. We say that our time series y sub t, notice that it's denoted by t. The subscript is t, indicating that this is a time series. In our previous lessons, we used y sub I, okay, indicating that it's a cross-sectional data. Okay, to differentiate a cross-sectional data from a time series data, the practice is to use a t subscript here. Y sub t is equal to a certain function, a certain constant delta, okay? And then notice that the predictor for your y sub t is y sub t minus 1. Y sub t minus 1 means the one lag data. So let me quickly illustrate that. So for example, you have, let me write some data here. For example, we have, okay, let me use this. Here. Okay, so suppose we have this data, I'll call it y sub t, of the prices of a certain stock. Okay, let's say, let me keep it simple. Let's say 8, 9, 8, 10, 9, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is a shortened version of the prices of a particular stock, a particular asset. So let's suppose this is your latest value. Let's say it's the value on November 10. Okay, this is the latest, or November 12. I'm sorry, November 12. It's the latest value. Okay, so when you say y sub t minus 1, okay, you're using the past lag 1 value. So if you take this into consideration, the value today, let's say this is the value today, is 9. the lag1 value will be the value yesterday. So what's the value yesterday? It's 8. Okay. For this value, the value the day before will be 7. Okay. For 7, this data, the value yesterday, the previous day will be 9, and so on and so forth. So you have this 10, 8, 9, 8, and then we will not have any value here, okay, on the first observation because it has no prior value. So this will be a blank or an NA value. So what does autoregression mean? Autoregression means that in order to model y sub t, we are using the past value of y sub t, which is this one. This one, class, this one. So this is y sub t minus 1. So we are going to model y sub t, okay, using regression, using y sub t minus 1. So this is the lag1 value. So that's where the name AR, autoregressive lag1, comes from. Okay, so if it was an autoregressive lag2, then you have also lag2. And this becomes, lag2 means, class, 2 days before, depending on the period of your data. So this becomes 7, this becomes 9. So it's the lag of lag1, right? That is your lag2 with reference to y sub t. So this becomes 7, 9, and this is now 10. This is 8. This is 9. This is 8. And there will be, okay, no, sorry for the alignment. There will be no 2 values here. And so the model will just allow these values because we can't use this class. We can't choose missing values in your regression. Okay. So we now have lag1 and lag2. Okay. So imagine they're just other variables. Okay. Other independent variables. And since we have studied multiple linear regression, and we know that in multiple linear regression, we have this dependent variable, and we would want to associate or predict it or explain it using your independent variables. In a time series, in particular an AR process, your predictors are your past values. Okay? That these are your past values, and they become your predictors. Okay, let me pause for a while and once again request your feedback, class. Kindly chat in the chat box if it's okay so far. Are we clear so far, class, about this concept of autoregression? Okay, good. Thank you. How about the others, please? All right. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, and we can now express the autoregression, class, as a function. So you can express it as your constant is delta, okay? Or you can express it as beta null, or others would express it as phi. Anyway, they're just variables, okay? They're just, I mean, constants. Phi sub null. Phi sub 1 is the coefficient, okay? This is the parameter for the phis for lag1, and this is our residual error term. So this takes the form, class, of any linear regression model, class. The only difference is that, number 1, this is a time series. Okay, number 2, we use the values of the data itself, of the variable itself, in order to model our data. Okay, now there are certain assumptions here, just like in a multiple linear regression model. The residuals, okay, we can make it as similar here. Okay, let's change this to epsilon to be consistent. Epsilon, okay. It's independently and individually distributed. It's a normal distribution, class. So we're just saying here that the residual should be should have zero mean, okay? It should have no trend, and the variance should be constant. If you recall, class, in our discussion of heteroscedasticity, we were saying that if the residuals show a particular pattern, let's say it's going up, it has a trend going up or going down, or it's fanning out, the residuals are increasing over time, it's fanning out or fanning in, then that indicates that there's no that the residuals are okay, they're not constant. So here they should be constant, the residuals here. In case they're not constant, class, then either you generate a different model, or perhaps it may require uh, the use of another method and not ARIMA. For instance, it might require uh, an Arch-Garch method, okay, which we'll be explaining in the future. Okay. All right. So we said here the errors, okay, they should be independently distributed, just like a normal distribution that has a mean of 0 and constant variance. Okay. All right. Now there are certain conditions, class, for our parameters here, p. Okay, for our coefficients. In multiple linear regression, class, there are no conditions. Okay, this is my beta 1, if you recall. Y sub I is equal to the beta null plus beta 1 times the independent variable 1, x sub 1. So there are no conditions that we impose on beta 1, on the parameter 1. In time series analysis, this phi sub 1, class, it has to have we impose a condition on that. So for AR1, class, the first coefficient, phi1, should be less than 1, at least the absolute value of that. So what does that mean? It can be negative 0.9, or it can be positive 0.9, but it cannot be 1.1 or negative 1.5. This phi1, class, here, the condition for it to be autoregressive, an AR1 process, is that the phi1 should be, the absolute value of that should be less than 1. Okay, here, class. So please take note of that. In an AR1 process, cannot have a coefficient of phi1 that's greater than 1, absolute value, class. So it cannot be negative 1.5, neither can it be positive 1.1. The absolute value should be less than 1. So it can be negative 0.8 or positive 0.8. It can be either one of them, but it cannot exceed 1. All right. Again, class, may I seek your feedback? Is that clear, class? The condition for P sub 1. Okay, good. Good. All right. Thank you. Yeah, we will. Thank you, Jerry Lane, for that comment. What would happen if it's greater than 1? Then it's not actually an AR1 process. Okay, we'll discuss that when we go to the model itself. But that's a very good question, and that requires analysis. So when we go to the modeling itself, we will discuss why it should be less than 1, the absolute value, and what happens if it's if it's more than 1. Okay. All right. How about an AR2 process, class? So an AR2 process, just to be consistent, I'll just make this phi. Phi. Okay. All right. An AR2 process, class, take a look at this. Just like the one that I illustrated a while ago, it has two predictors. It has two quote-unquote independent variables. And the independent variables are the lag values of x sub t. X sub t minus 1 we discussed before, okay, a while ago, and then x sub t minus 2, also the lag 2 of your x, okay? Okay, just to be consistent also, I'm sorry. let's make this y just to be consistent with the one above. Okay. Y, did I miss out anything? Okay, good. All right. So our y sub t class is phi sub 1, y sub t minus 1, and phi sub 2, y sub t minus 2. And with the residual here, okay? And the residual, we say that it's a balancing figure because this one, which we have learned from our multiple linear regression, this one is actually your predicted value. This is your y hat sub t, okay? And since the actual value may or may not be equal to the predicted value, okay? In the event that they're not equal, then we have the difference between them as your residual, as your error term. And also there's a condition class if you're doing an AR2 model, autoregressive 2 model. The condition is that, okay, this one class. Here are some conditions. No? Here is the more complete one, okay? So just ignore this class. This is the more complete one. Just like our phi sub 1 class, phi sub 2 should be, the absolute value of that should be less than 1. And also, if you add phi 1 and phi 2, they should be less than 1. Or phi sub 2 minus phi sub 1 should also be less than 1. So an AR2 process bears the condition that about your coefficients phi 1 and phi 2. So these conditions have to be met. And as I said, we're going to look at these conditions in our example when we model our time series itself. Okay. So in general, okay, just don't mind the X here class. Okay, anyway, they're just variables. So X sub t in general. So let's again to make this consistent, phi null. Okay. For an ARP process, P stands for log P. Okay, which means that you're getting the log of your variable. You're getting P logs. Okay, that P can be any number. It can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 4 or 5. Okay, so the model is, this is your constant, this is your intercept in the terms of multiple linear regression. It's equal to phi 1 times x sub t minus 1, okay, plus, okay, log p, so that this is p minus 1, the second to the last, and then x of t minus p, and then lastly is phi sub p, okay, because it's log of p, multiplied by that by x of t minus p, plus your residual. Okay, so we have, okay, may I again request your feedback about the AR process? So you can write an AR3 process, an AR4 process, an AR10 process. Normally, class, the AR process does not really use very long lags. Okay, very long lags. For example, I haven't seen a model where it's an AR8. Of course, there might exist a model like that, but normally I would see up to 5 or 6, but that's more the exception than the rule. Usually I would see lag 1, lag 2, lag 3. Okay, all right, very good. Thank you so much, class. Now we go to the other process, the other part of the ARIMA process, which is MA. So this is moving average. So for moving average, class, take a look at this. Your time series x sub t is equal to a certain constant. Okay. You can name this as theta 0. Okay, let's put this as theta 0 or mu. It's the same. Plus, you notice that we write first the epsilon, okay, plus t sub 1 epsilon t minus 1. So what you're using here for your MA process are the residuals. Okay, so this is a function of the residuals. MA1 is a certain constant plus your residual at time t plus your residual at time t minus 1. So whereas the AR process uses the past values of the data itself, in an MA process, in a moving average process, the model uses the past residuals. Okay, epsilon sub t, t minus 1, because it's an MA1 process. If it was an MA2 process, then you have, you notice we write for consistency, theta 0, okay, plus epsilon sub t, and then the two lags of your residuals. Okay, you notice that we write first, it's reversed, no, as compared to AR. Epsilon sub t first, and then epsilon sub t minus 1, epsilon sub t minus 2. Okay, we write the current residual first. For AR class, since epsilon sub t is only one here, so we don't include epsilon sub t minus 1, e sub t minus 2, etc. Okay, so that's an MA2 process. And then once again, if it's a Q process, okay, so we write MAQ as compared from ARP, MAQ. So this is ARMA. Okay, here first. Okay, so notice we once again write first epsilon sub t, and then t minus 1, t minus 2, t minus here theta q minus 1, and then theta q. The last one class is your q, theta q, and epsilon will always be t minus 1, t minus 2, t minus q minus 1, and then t minus q, the last MAQ. And sometimes, now, kindly research class, are there also conditions for your theta? Okay, is it also a requirement that for an MA process, the absolute value of theta 1 should be less than 1? Okay, please find that out, class. I want you to do some study about that, do some quick research. Okay, there are conditions for the AR process. Are there conditions for the MA process? Okay, let me repeat that, class. For the AR1 process, it's required that the absolute value of your first parameter, p sub 1, should be less than 1. It cannot be more than 1. Okay? It can be negative less, absolute value of the negative should be less than 1. Okay? It can be positive or negative, but the absolute value should be less than 1. If it's an AR2 process, then you have these conditions. Now, how about the MA process? Are there conditions for theta 1? Are there conditions for an MA2? Are there conditions for theta 1 and theta 2? So I'd like you to find that out, class. Okay, and please tell us next meeting. Okay, may answer dito. Let's see. Okay, thank you, Richard. So Richard already answered that. So theta 1 should not be more than, not less than, in other words, the absolute value of theta 1 should also be less than 1. Okay, thank you, Richard. How about an MA2 process? Anyone? So I just put here. Is there any condition for the theta 1 coefficient? Okay, and Richard answered it already. How about, class, for an MA2 process? What are the conditions for theta 1 and theta 2? Okay, I'll leave you, class, to find out, class. Okay, be sure to know that. We'll spend some time, class, taking a look at these parameters because it's important to know that. Okay, now how about class an ARMA PQ? So this is now a combination of AR process and MA process. And when you combine this, you have P to denote the lag for the order of AR process, and then Q to denote the order of the MA process. So let's suppose it's an ARMA 1 process, so ARMA 1-1. So if it's an ARMA 1-1, so we have here x sub t is equal to a certain constant c, or the intercept, plus, first we take a look at the AR process class. This is your AR process. It includes even epsilon sub t. Then we have the MA process here. So this is the AR process, epsilon phi1 x sub t minus 1 plus epsilon sub t, and the MA process, epsilon sub t plus theta 1 epsilon sub t minus 1 plus a certain constant. So that's now your ARMA 1-1 process. So we model our time series using log 1 of its past value and log 1 of its residual. Okay, so another example here, ARMA 2-1. So ARMA 2-1 just indicates that it's an order 2 as far as AR is concerned, and order 1 as far as MA is concerned. So how do we write this? We write it this way: x sub t is equal to a certain constant, plus you have two lags of your x values. This is order 1, order 2, and then you have order 1 of your MA process. Okay, so once you understand, class, the generic way to write your ARMA PQ, okay, then it's the rest is very easy. By the way, class, I forgot to tell you, MA2 can be written, class, as MA02. It means that there is no AR process, okay, no order for AR, and you have an order 2 for your MA. But generally we don't write it this way because it's unnecessary. We use MA2. All right, so to further our example, ARMA 2-2, simply you have two lags of x sub t, and then two lags of your epsilon sub t. Okay, you notice again that epsilon sub t is written first, then epsilon t minus 1, epsilon t minus 2. Your constants, theta 1, theta 2, of course, if you look at other books, they might be using other constants, other terms for this. But generally, these are the terms used: phi for your AR and theta for your MA. Okay. All right. So what's this? This is also on this class. What model is this? X sub t is equal to a certain constant, phi2 x sub t minus 2 plus epsilon sub t plus theta 1 epsilon t minus 1. Can you please chat in the chat box? What's your guess? What is this model class? Is it ARMA what class? ARMA 1-2, okay. Any other guess? Any other guess, class? ARMA 1-1. About the others, class, would you like to guess? What is this model class? ARMA 2-1, ARMA 2-2. Okay. All right. Thank you for your answers, class. Now, let's take a look at this class. What is the order of your AR process? It's x sub t minus 2, right? You're regressing your value, your data x sub t on 2 legs. Now, why is t minus 1 missing? Okay, technically, class, it's not missing. Technically, it's also, we can write this as, okay, let me copy this. Control C, Control V. So we can write this as phi sub 1 t minus 1, this one class, and then plus. Okay. So it can be written as this one class, phi sub 1 x sub t minus 1. However, class, it turns out that your phi sub 1 is 0. Okay. If you do this model and your phi sub 1 becomes 0 class, the value of phi sub 1 becomes 0, then your model can be written as this one, C plus phi sub 2 x sub t minus 2. So this class is an ARMA 2-1 model. You have 2 lags technically of your x sub t and 1 lag of your epsilon. Okay? So this is an ARMA 2-1 model. So even if you don't have the presence of your x sub t minus 1, okay, it's understood that it exists there, only that phi 1, it turns out that your phi 1 is equal to 0. Because if phi 1 is equal to 0, it means that the lag 1 of your x sub t does not contribute to explaining x sub t. Okay, that's what that means. Okay, so even if I remove this class, even if there's no presence of your, if there's no x sub t minus 1, then it is still ARIMA 2-1, ARMA 2-1 class. Okay, so may I have your feedback class if that's that explanation is clear? Okay, good. All right. So good. So if you see a model like this where you're regressing your time series based on its past values and its past residuals, then you can easily identify what type of ARMA model that is. Okay. Now, so in general class, this is your ARMA PQ model. You have P lags of your, that's why this is phi sub P, okay? X sub T minus P. It's always T minus 1, T minus 2, T minus 3, T minus P class. And then your epsilon sub T, and then your theta Q here class. Theta Q, and then epsilon T minus Q. Again, it's always epsilon T minus 1, T minus 2, up to T minus Q here. So this is an ARMA PQ model. Okay, so once again, let me pause for a while and ask class your comments if that's clear, if there are any questions about an ARMA PQ model. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, class, for your feedback. Okay, and as you know, we entertain questions here. If you have any questions, clarifications, we'll let's bring that to the class, and then let the class and myself answer the questions. Okay, now lastly here we have, how about an ARIMA PDQ? So far we have been using ARMA, okay, with the missing I here. Now, the complete model is actually ARIMA. So it's ARIMA PDQ, where D stands for differencing. Okay, so when you have ARIMA PDQ, then and then you have ARIMA 111, this indicates that this one is order 1, lag 1 of your AR process. This is lag 1 of your MA process. And then we have here differencing. We will explain this in a while, class. But differencing, class, what does this do? This totally changes your data. Okay, this will totally change your data. So here, if we're modeling X sub T class, here we're no more modeling x sub t. Okay, and let me explain that, class. Let me just quickly show the difference of a different data, class. Let's go back to our example a while ago, y sub t. Y sub t, say again, 8, 9, 7, 10, example only, and then 9, 8, 9. Okay, let's just limit it at that. So this is our data. This is our latest data, 9. The value yesterday was 8, and then two days ago, 9. Let's assume this is daily data. Now, when we differentiate our time series, okay, you call it delta y sub t or d sub t, dy sub t. So these are the symbols by which we can use for your difference time series. A difference time series means, class, you're getting the difference between the value today and the value yesterday. So that, for example, for this one, this becomes 9 minus 8. This becomes 1. Okay, this becomes 8 minus 9, negative 1. 9 minus 10, negative 1. 10 minus 7, that's 3. 7 minus 9, that's negative 2. 9 minus 8, that's 1. And then you have an NA here, missing value because there's no predecessor value here. Okay, so what are we modeling now, class? We're now modeling this one. This is now the variable that we're modeling, the difference time series. Okay, if it's a log 2 class, we have another differencing. So it's either 9 minus 9, okay, log 2, no? 9 minus 9, okay, 8 minus 10, etc. All right, so that's what happens when we have a difference data. So when we have a difference data, class, we're no longer modeling x sub t. We're now modeling a difference value, d x sub t. Okay, so it's now a different time series already, class. When we have this one, when we have this d here. Okay, now why is it that we have to differentiate, class? What's the purpose? Okay, the purpose, class, we'll learn in a while, class. We do differencing because when we're using the ARIMA model, class, there's a condition that the time series should be what we call stationary. Okay, and then we're going to that now. What is a stationary time series? If the time series is not stationary, then we have a problem. We cannot make use of the ARIMA process in order to model our time series. We have to convert our time series into a stationary time series. Okay, so converting it into a stationary time series might require, class, differencing. Okay, it might require differencing in order to make it stationary. Okay, so that's what we're going to discuss now. Okay, so let me okay, and by the way, class, the way you write the model still remains the same. P and Q. P, if it's ARIMA 1, then we still make use of the log 1 of the time series. Log 1 of the time series itself. This one is log 1 of the epsilon class. Only that we're not anymore using the original time series. What we're using now is a different time series. Okay, but the way of writing ARMA 1 and 1 still remains the same. Only that, again, class, you're now modeling a different time series. Okay, so let's go here. What are the steps, class? Because in this lesson, our objective is to be able to create a model for our time series. So define our ARIMA PDQ if there's a need for differencing. So these are the steps. Let's quickly take a look at the generic steps in doing a an ARIMA model, number one, of course, you have to plot the time series. And I said here, you have to check if the time series is stationary. So if the time series is not stationary, then we have to do some transformations. So what are those transformations? Okay, let's suppose, class, let me first try to illustrate that. So let's suppose you have this, this is your T, this is your Y. Let's say this is the price of any asset. And the price of an asset, for example, if it's behaving like this, okay, suppose that your asset has been increasing generally across time. Okay, the question is this time series stationary? The answer is no, it's not stationary. If an asset displays a trend, class, or if it displays non-constant variance, what does non-constant variance mean? Let me draw another plot. So it can be like this. Suppose your time series is behaving this way. So notice, class, although it does not have any trend, okay, because if you take the average, it's still the same here. The average is still at this value. However, the variance now is increasing over time. Okay, the average of the prices is still the same. Okay, so it's constant, it has no trend. However, the variance is increasing over time. So this indicates that the series is not stationary. So what do we mean by stationarity? Stationarity, class, means the data has no trend. No trend means constant mean. The mean is constant. The mean is constant. And also the variance, class, the variance of your data is also constant. So two things, class. There's no trend, meaning that the average is constant, and also the variance is constant. So if we, let's say you have this data, take a look at this, class. Okay, let's say this is the average. So you can see here that this time series data does not have any trend. Okay, it's not generally going up or not going down. Okay, so which means that the mean is constant. And also, you can see here that there is no fanning out. It doesn't behave like this, class. The variance does not change over across time. Okay, it's not increasing like this, or it's not what we call fanning out. Just fan, right? Fanning out means going out or going inside, fanning in like this. If it was behaving like this, class. Okay, so if the data has constant mean and constant variance, then the data is stationary. And if the data is stationary, then we can now make use of the ARIMA process in order to model our data. If the data is not stationary, then we have what we call, okay, we have to do transformation of your data. One way to transform it is to step 2, class, difference. Okay, this is what I mentioned a while ago. Okay, differencing. Okay, so what does differencing do? You difference, class, because it will remove the trend. Okay, it will remove the trend. Okay, we'll discuss later the order of this, class, because the order of this matters. And then also, next, class, actually let's change the order, class, here. Control X, Control V. Let's do this. Let's make this step 2. Or actually we can make it 2A and 2B. So if the data has non-constant variance, Okay, if the variance is not constant class, then we do what we call log transformation. So we can do, let's make it 2a, okay? And then if the data has a trend, then we can difference the data in order to make the data have constant mean. So let's call this 2, okay, let me just call it number 3. Okay, but these are, usually these are taken together, okay? All right. So you'll appreciate this more, class, when we have the example. So just be aware that if you plot your data, which is the step 1, class, always plot your data first so that you have a visual of what's the nature of your data. You plot the data and then see if there's a trend or and if there's a non-constant variance. If the variance is not constant, then you do log transformation. Okay, and then also if the data has a trend, then you can do differencing. Okay, now the log transformation, class, normally will not address the trend. Okay, it will not remove the trend. Okay, differencing will remove the trend. Sometimes differencing can also remove the non-constancy invariance, sometimes, but not always. So others would suggest to difference first and then do the log transformation later. However, there's a problem with that, class. I'm going to show why that can be problematic if you get the difference first and then do the log transformation. Okay, so let's first move to the next. Okay, this one, class. Okay, the order here is important, class. So if there was a need to first get the log transformation and then get the difference, class, difference of the log transformation, in order to address both non-constancy in variance and in mean, then that actually is taken care of 2 and 3. Okay, so this is actually unnecessary. Okay, so first, class, first observe. Let me repeat the process. Observe the data, class. Check the data. Plot the data. And if there's non-constancy in variance, okay, you treat that first by getting the log. And then if there's still remains trend, then you get the difference. Then after you have done that, class, we do statistical testing. Aside from visually testing, checking your data if there's no more trend or if the variance is constant, we can also do statistical test to check if the data is stationary. So we have the ADF test, augmented Dickey-Fuller test, and the KPSS test. These two tests are very important in determining if the time series is already stationary. Now, why do we have to make sure that the time series is stationary? Because we cannot do ARIMA, class. We cannot perform ARIMA unless the data is stationary. Now, of course, today, okay, in the advent of software, you can just load your data, even if it's not stationary. And there are functions in R which can already automatically generate the model. Okay, it will automatically differentiate. However, the downside to that is that it might not. I still have to see a function where it also gets the log of the data. The automatic there is only for getting the difference and not the log. Okay, so once we have tested, class, the data statistically using ADF and KPSS test to check for stationarity, the next thing to do now is to plot your what we call ACF and PACF. Okay, autocorrelation function and partial autocorrelation function. All right. Now, I'll delay the discussion of this once we get here itself. I'll discuss what HCF is and PACF is, because it's quite to visualize this without the plot of the data. Then number 7, of course, after we have plotted the ACF and the PACF, then we can now proceed with the fitting of the best ARIMA model. The fitting of the best ARIMA model class can be obtained from the ACF and the PACF. That's why we need this. We need this. However, class, this is not an easy task. Okay, if you have the ACF and the PACF, then you're asked what most likely will be the model for your time series. Well, sometimes it's easy to determine, sometimes it's not. It's difficult. Okay, so good thing again, there's R in order to help us determine what's the best model for our time series. Okay, whether it's the original time series or a log time series or a difference time series. Now, by the way, good thing, class, with financial data is that if you get the log of the data and then get the difference of that, that's equivalent to getting the returns of the data. Okay, let me repeat that. If you get the log, if you do log transformation and then get the difference of the data, which we said was the prerequisite steps in order to convert the data into a stationary data, that is also equivalent to getting the returns of the data, of the continuous returns of the data. And since in time series analysis in finance, mostly we deal with the returns of the asset, then it's all good, class. It's all good, because getting the log and then getting the difference will not only transform your data, okay, into a stationary data, most probably, it will also it's also equivalent to getting the what, class? Log returns of the data, which is what we need usually for financial time series. We need to get the returns. Okay, and then once we have identified the model, class, once we have identified the best fit ARIMA model, then we forecast. We forecast the time series. Okay, we can forecast depending on the periods of the data. It can be daily. We can forecast the next, let's say, 1 week, or if it's weekly, the next 2 weeks, etc. Okay, we can do the forecasting. And just like in multiple linear regression, class, we don't just stop at being able to generate the model. We have to check for the residuals. We check the residuals, class, and hoping that the residuals are homoscedastic. If they are heteroscedastic, then something has to be done, class. Okay, so these are the basic steps in our ARIMA time series modeling. Okay, so let's now proceed to the modeling itself. Okay, here I defined once again what a stationary time series is. Okay, the properties of a stationary time series is that its mean, we discussed this, its variance and autocorrelation are all constant over time. So it does not change. It as far as for example, we're looking at the price of an asset. It does not have any trend. It's not going up, neither is it going down. It indicates that the mean is constant. The variance also, class, if there's a fanning out of our data, okay, I keep on repeating that term. Okay, I hope that's clear to you. Fanning out looks like this. Just imagine a fan, class, or a fanning in. It's like this. Sorry. Fanning out and then fanning in. Yeah. So our time series is constant in mean, constant in variance, constant in autocorrelation. So they're all constant over time. Okay. It has the property that the mean, the variance, and autocorrelation structure do not change over time. Okay, so how does a stationary time series look like? It looks like a flat looking series without trend, constant variance, constant autocorrelation structure over time, and no periodic fluctuations. In other words, class, a stationary time series has properties that do not depend on the time. Okay. Time series with trends or seasonality are not stationary. The trend and seasonality will affect the value of the time series at different times. Okay, so I have here some, okay, let's take a look at this class. Sample plot, Control C, open this in oops, here, okay. So this is class a stationary time series. No trend, okay, variance is constant, right? On the other hand, this one is a non-stationary time series. It has a downward trend, right? Downward trend. So this is not stationary. This is stationary. If you're dealing with the data like this, and most likely class when you're dealing with, for example, assets, stock prices, it's either it's going up or it's going down class. So you'll meet data like this. Hardly will you meet data like this. But also take note that when you model a time series data, you normally model not the price itself, but the log returns, okay, the returns. So if you're going to compute first for the log returns, most probably class, it will be like this, okay? Because for a model like this class, when you remember class, when we get the log class, it will remove the non-constancy invariance. And then when we get the difference, it will remove the trend. Okay. All right. So going back to our, okay, there's also another one here. I'm not going to show that anymore. I leave that to you to explore class. Okay. Now, stationary class, there's another name for that class. Okay, you can sometimes you'll see the term WN. Okay, WN stands for white noise. Okay, stands for the white noise, and that's that indicates stationarity. It does not matter when you observe it; it looks much the same at any point in time. So if I so for example, we're taking a look at a time series like this. Okay, so what does that tell us, class? It looks much the same point at any time. If I take a look at this period class, this particular period, okay, the average is still this one. If I take a look at this period, the average still remains the same. This period, the average still remains the same. Okay, so that's what we mean by much the same at any time. Okay, in general, a stationary time series will have no predictable patterns in the long run. Okay, mostly roughly horizontal, although of course there might be some cyclic, okay, behavior with constant variance. Okay, so once again, why is it important for us to convert or transform our data into a stationary time series? Okay, it's because many of the forecasting methods class are based on this assumption of a stationarized time series. It's easy to predict class if your time series is stationary. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at this data class, which I shared with you. So our data comes from air passengers, So if we run that, we'll have a vector here, values. Okay, a vector of values. Let's create an object called AP, and then let's give it the name for air passengers. Air passengers is quite long. And then let's plot AP class. Let's run this. Okay. Okay, so this is data from R itself, air passengers. Okay, what do you notice here, class? Is this a stationary time series? Kindly please chat in the chat box. Is this a stationary time series? Okay, no, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, good. All right. You're correct, class. This is not a stationary time series. Why is that so? Because it looks like our time series has a trend. It's going up, right? So there's a trend, which means that the mean is not constant. What does it mean, class, to have a mean, constant mean? If I take a look at this specific period, class, the mean could be somewhere here. If you take a look at this period, okay, so the mean most probably will be around this level. So the mean here, mean at the period 2 is not the same as the mean at period 1. Okay, so this makes it not stationary. Also, okay, if we try to, sorry. Okay, you can see that the variance is not constant. It's increasing over time. Okay, more or less, class. Okay, so what can we conclude out of this? Okay, the mean is definitely not constant. The variance, okay, we're not sure if this is constant or not, but towards here there is a quite an increase of your variance. Okay. So this is not stationary. Okay. So we can now check, class. Visually, we know that this is not stationary. And then here we have the augmented Dickey-Fuller test. So from the T-series package, where the null hypothesis is the time series has a unit root. Okay, we'll explain unit root next meeting, class. What does it mean to have a unit root? Okay, loosely speaking, it means that your time series is not stationary. Okay, it will have something to do with the, okay, we'll discuss next week the root, okay? Okay, has a unit root means the values are on the circle. Okay, we'll explain this next meeting. Suffice it to say, class, then that to say that the time series is not stationary, synonymously can be stated as it has a unit root. Okay. All right. So let's run, class, the ADF test, augmented Dickey-Fuller test from the T-series. Control Enter. All right. What do we see here, class? The null hypothesis is that it is not stationary, right? Okay. And the alternative hypothesis is that it is stationary. Okay, what's your p-value, class? Could you kindly check, please? Could you kindly, yeah, thank you, Geraldine. Yes, you're correct. There is some upward trend. Okay, could you kindly write here in the chat box what your p-value is for your augmented Dickey-Fuller? Okay, 0.01. So you got the same, no? 0.01. Okay. So what's our conclusion here? What's our conclusion here? Our conclusion is that, yeah, correct. We reject the null hypothesis that the time series is not stationary. Interesting, class. Interesting. So dito sa ADF test, class, okay, we can see that there's a little bit of weakness in this statistical test. That's why others would more appreciate or more recommend the KPSS test. Okay, this is also a test of stationarity. So my concerns lang dito in the ADF test, class, there are some issues here. Okay, because it tells us based on the ADF test that your time series is stationary. Okay, di ba? We reject the null hypothesis. Now in the KPSS test here, let's try this time, class. The null hypothesis here is the opposite of the ADF test. Okay, so here the null hypothesis is that the time series is stationary. It's opposite that of the ADF test. So let's run this. And we can see now here that the p-value is 0.01. Okay, 0.01 class. KPSS test for level stationarity. Stationarity in mean. When you say level, class, level stationarity, we're talking about stationarity in mean. So which means that there is a constant mean, class. And here, class, diba? The null hypothesis here is that it's stationary. So p-value is 0.01. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis that your time series is stationary. Okay, so that's why sometimes, class, my call it inconsistency, class, with the way the ADF test is run here. So I oftentimes prefer the KPSS test because sometimes the ADF test is not accurate. All right, so using the KPSS test, okay, we were able to show that the time series is indeed not stationary. Okay, we still have time to discuss this, class. Let's go here. So let's print first the AP object. The AP, class, is a vector. It's a numerical vector. These are actual data in thousands, okay, of airline passengers from 1949 up to 1960. These are the months, January to November, and then 1949 to 1960. So you have here monthly data, January up to December. So let's see, class, what if we difference? Remember, class, what does the differencing do? We said that differencing will treat the trend of the data. Okay, it will treat the trend of the data. It will detrend it, class. Now, is it possible to have double differencing? Yes, class. Sometimes you doing one differencing will not treat the trend, so you'll have to do another differencing. But let's first see, class, if this one. Okay, so we now created another vector called DAP, which is the difference, class. So this is the function for the difference of your AP. And let's compare, class, the first 6 observations of AP and DAP. Here. You can see here, class, that these are the first observations, actually last 6. No? The first are the, okay, anyway, as far as the head function is concerned, 112, 118. And how was the difference data obtained? Here, class, 118 minus 112, that's 6. 132 minus 118, that's 14. 129 minus 132, that's -3. Okay, so you now see that DAP is a totally different time series already. It's now the difference of your data. Okay, so let's just get the mean of AP and mean of DAP. So you can see now that mean of AP is 280, while the mean of DAP is 2.23. And then let's plot DAP. Let's see what happens, class. All right. What happened to our time series data, class? Any feedback, please? What happened to the mean? What happened to the mean, class? What happened to the mean? Anyone, class? Is there still a trend, class? Is there still a trend? Yes or no, please, in the chat box. May trend pa ba? Okay. So if you draw a line here, because the average is around 2 point something, right? If I go to any period, let's say here, is the mean more or less constant, practically constant? The answer is yes, class. Okay, yes. There's no more trend. It's not anymore going up. A trend behaves this way, class. Or it's no longer going down. It's not going down. Okay. So in this case, class, you can see that there's no trend in the data. Okay. However, class, is the variance constant? That could be the problem, class, because if you take a look at this, class, it seems to be increasing over time. So stationary in mean, yes. Stationary in variance, okay, no. It's not stationary in variance because there seems to be increasing variance over time. Okay, but we can check that, class. All right, we can check that. Okay. Now, what will happen, class, with this one? We got the difference of the time series, and then let's get the log of that. And let's create this object, log of the AP. Okay, Control Enter. Log of the AP. All right. Now what happened here? We were given a warning, class. Warning, NaNs produced. Okay, so the result of first getting the difference, okay, we know that getting the difference will generate negative numbers. Ito yung class, no? We have negative numbers for the difference AP. Okay, and then when we get the log of that, class, okay, the log of a negative number, let's try this, class. In your console, write log negative 10. What do you get, class? Log of negative 10. What are you getting? Log of negative 10? You're getting, okay, NaN. Yes, class. Because we cannot get the log of a negative number. Neither can you get the log of 0. If I run this, log of 0, log of negative 10, okay? The first one is not a number. The second one is just like not a number. It's negative infinity. So log of a number, of a negative number, and the log of 0 are not defined. Unlike, class, log of, let's say, 10. Okay, log of 0.1, even if it's a small number, okay, it still has a value. But log of 0 is negative infinity. Okay, so that's why, class, I said a while ago that you don't first get the difference and then get the log, because you're going to get you're going to get not a number. You're going to get error terms. Rather, the process class is, but before we do that, let's first, okay, let's copy this class. And let's see, it's almost time class, Control B. Let's just finish this. And let's see class if, is DAP already stationary? Okay. What do you notice here, class? What is being tested here is level stationarity. Okay, take note, class, level stationarity. When you say level, you're testing the mean. Okay, and the value here, class, is 0.1. And we know, class, that for KPSS test, the null hypothesis is that the time series is stationary. Now, since the p-value here is equal to 0.1, then we fail to reject the null hypothesis that the time series is here. What we're testing there is level stationarity. Okay, level stationarity. All right. Then, okay, then we will discuss, class, yung next time yung stationarity with respect to the variance. Okay, so what's important here, class, is that we don't get the difference and then get the log. I'll just end in this class. What if we first get the log, class? So get the log of AP, okay, and maybe get the first 6 observations, head, there. Okay, then let's plot this, class. Plot the log of AP. You notice, class, that getting the log of a number may treat the non-constant variance. You know, notice now that the variance is constant now. Okay, it's not fanning out. However, it does not treat the trend. May trend pa rin siya. Okay, so take note, getting the log will not treat the trend. Okay, getting the difference will treat the trend. So let's take another step now. We get the difference of the log of AP and then plot this, and we'll end in this. Control Enter. Okay, take a look at this now, class. Okay, so getting the log, class, okay, made the variance constant, and then getting the difference made the trend, made the mean constant. Okay, so we now have a stationary time series here. Control V. Let's get also this one. DLAP. Okay. So here, level stationarity, it means that your time series is constant in mean. Okay, we'll adjust this in order to show the constancy in variance also. All right, so we end in that, class. Okay, so next meeting we're going to continue our discussion, and we're going to use as an example. We may use Apple data, or maybe we can use another Philippine stock data. Okay.